Thank you very much to all the folks at the VC platform. And Dennis, it's great to see you. Not that we don't talk to each other, right? Because we've been involved in coaching and working with the team over the last couple of years. And so it's really delightful to be talking with you about all kinds of things relative to leadership, biotech companies, commercialization, scaling, all the challenges of leadership. So just
Thanks,
delighted to
Simon.
have you here. So a little bit about Dennis. There's so many things to say about Dennis. We'll get into some of that as we talk about leadership and the challenges of leadership during these really challenging times. But he is an immunologist by training, and he started his career engineering T cells for cancer treatment. Right, Dennis, that's how it began. But he's worked in pharma and he has his PhD from the King's College in London. And I think your research was on stem cells in liver, right? I mean that
Mhm.
whole focus. And so that's sort of an area of specialty, I think, for him. And he discovered new liver cell types, which is significant in that field. So he's an expert in stem cell biology. I could go on and on about the science, the papers, the research, and all of that. And so, with all of that scientific background, et cetera, and your career in getting prepared for all this, why Prolific Machines? How did that come about? And what is this company?
Hmm. Yeah. It's funny. I just wrote an essay,
Ah,
why prolific machines
oh,
went,
why Prolific
went
Machines?
went live about 30 minutes ago.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Oh my gosh.
I,
Very timely.
I
Very
won't do
timely.
I won't do
Do the whole paper,
I won't
right?
do the whole thing, but the short answer is it was solving a problem that I had as a scientist, which is that the tools that we have to control biology are not very good. And our aspirations with biology are very high, and so the gap between those two things was the opportunity for a new company, and um, Prolific Machines is that company. So basically, we build new tools to control cells using light instead of traditional tools, which are molecular. And the whole company is built on the premise that light is the best way to control biology. And yeah, I just solved this problem for myself as a scientist, and turns out lots of other people have this problem too. So I
Yes.
think it's always good to solve problems that you know that you have. At least one person has the problem.
Yes. Well, it's funny, as we talk about, the so many scientists that you have in the company and this whole idea of building and scaling a company, going to commercial. I've worked a lot with pharmas as well. And so that challenge of starting at that first place and then evolving and even resetting out. You said to me one time that as you evolve the company, you use this sort of analogy or metaphor about an ocean voyage, particularly as you really move through making this company successful on the commercial side, which is really your goal.
Yeah, the ocean voyage was it was a metaphor used to articulate uh company strategy to the wider team, and just to explain a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, when we started Prolific, the first application of this light controlled biology was cultured meat. I love eating meat. I feel terrible about it, and I really want to have a guilt-free, meat-heavy lifestyle. And so I felt like cultured meat was a good way to do that. Traditional processes aren't going to be able to make it at a price point that makes sense. Our technology could, and so that's kind of uh, why the original team got together. And the ocean voyage was just trying to communicate to the rest of the team later on that um, we know that the island that we want to get to on the other side is cultured meat, but we also know that we can't do the voyage all in one journey because we have limited supplies on the ship. And so the good news is that there's several islands between where we need to go and where we are. And we need to choose one of these islands, and we need to stop off and we need to resupply, and then we can do the second leg of the journey. And that island for us is therapeutics manufacturing and therapeutic proteins specifically. I can talk more about that if you're interested. Um, But it's a good way to at least it was helpful for our team to understand that this is not just a random decision. It's uh, a point along a journey.
Mhm. Interesting as we think about, this idea of kind of reframing the culture towards this commercialization and with the scientific people. I mean, what were the challenges in that, right? I mean, in a way, there was a reset for the culture. And I don't think I've ever seen, I had a lot of resets in organizations I've worked with, and they take a long time. It's just bringing people along with all that. And yet it seemed to happen fairly quickly. What did you do to actually help reset the culture? What were the leadership things, practices, things you were engaged in that helped bring people along to this new place, this ocean voyage with these journeys along the way?
Yeah, I think I think really articulating to the scientists that we need to do science, but we can't do science like they are used to because many of our scientists come from academia, and academia really rewards scientific exploration for the purpose of scientific exploration. So really retraining many of your scientists to be like, science is really important, but it has to be very much focused on solving a problem for someone. Hopefully someone who can pay us quickly. Uh, and making sure that everybody gets that reframe within the scientists is non-trivial, and sometimes they can't, in which case, you have to part ways, but most of the time they do.
Yeah. And did you do most of that resetting? I mean, was it one-on-ones with you? I mean, the leader has such a key role in the relationship part. I mean,
Yeah.
how did that play out for you
I mean,
personally?
my roles evolved a lot over time. I mean, at the
Yeah. Yeah.
beginning, I was the only biologist, so I was spending my mornings and afternoons in the lab and fundraising, and I was spending my evenings and weekends just in the lab. Um, and so over time, that obviously changed, and I had the great privilege of recruiting people who are far more competent than me. And today, I lead a team full of incredible humans, and I play really a minor role these days and a really supporting role. So I feel a little bit like the parent who, their kids grown up and leaving the house and don't really need them anymore. And
Leading the troops, the children to do their thing, right?
yeah, yeah. We're really in that stage of prolific where the company, the people there are really good and they know what they're doing and it's going in the right direction. And we have people who want what we've built and people, leaders of the company who can really run the company. And so I'm becoming more and more obsolete, which is good and bad.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny how the culture is so important to Prolific. I think there's been a lot of, while you don't, you say you don't have it's been very intentional to build a culture that really works there. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about even in hiring.
Yep.
I get this a lot in my own coaching, the fit, or the lack of fit, or the hire that didn't work out. What does
Yep.
Prolific do to hire the right people to fit the culture? Because it's pretty clear what it takes to fit there, right? What does that look like?
I spent a lot of time on hiring. Um, And especially in the early days, like most of the hires were handpicked by me. This is something I take extremely seriously. I really look for the overlap between people who are brilliant at what they do, like really in the top 0.01% at what they do, but also incredibly kind and high empathy. Because something like prolific is it's a very complicated problem. We have optogeneticists, we have hardware engineers, we have software engineers, we have cell biologists, we have um, operations people, we have sales and marketing people, and everybody needs to be able to work together or it doesn't work. And when it's such a multidisciplinary problem, being brilliant is necessary but insufficient. You also need to have really high emotional intelligence. You need to be able to work with people. And so I look for the people who have the overlap of those two things, and that is really what we've created. If anyone comes to Prolific, it's very easily noticeable. The people are incredible. It's a great privilege.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating to think about. And I think that when you talk about the idea of a culture, one of the things I've enjoyed so much, we've done a couple of offsites with the Prolific team, is how fun the culture is and the humor. And I don't know, humor is very interesting. I mean, I do love humor in clients that I have because I had a situation not too long ago that was really tense in the room, and I had one of the, leadership team members that just broke the ice through humor. It was appropriate humor. There can be inappropriate humor, but it was appropriate humor that just enabled the group to kind of reset and get back in the game. And they actually solved it. So how does humor and fun play out with your team, right? I've seen it, but I'd love you to describe it for the group.
I think fun is extremely important. Time is our most valuable resource, and if work is not fun, then I think the people who are really good uh, will probably not choose to work with you.
Mhm.
We're kind of at the point right now where we're hiring people at the top of their game. They're hiring people who could be working anywhere. And in many cases, I'm hiring people who frankly have no need for their salaries. Like they've already made it, like they've
Yeah,
had exits
you're
or
already successful with lots of.
be extremely successful. And so they're not really coming and working at Prolific because I'm paying them a good salary. They're working at Prolific primarily because I'm telling them that it's fun and then making it fun,
Mhm.
uh, and making it impactful for the world.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
because eventually you get to the level where fun is actually one of the strongest arguments you can use for people.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
make it fun. We
yeah.
are a good time.
Yeah, no, I see that, and I see the fun, but I also see just a real discipline to the work as well. Which kind of
Absolutely.
brings us, Dennis, to this whole idea of leadership. All right. I mean, I have a lot of good feelings about good to great. And when Jim Collins wrote that book, he came back and he sort of identified in those great companies, what does leadership look like? And he identified this level 5 leadership, which is really humility and kindness with a fierce resolve. I don't think I've ever worked with any CEO that demonstrates that more than you. It's like humility and kindness, but a fierce resolve. I'd love to know how that came about and where did you get that? Why is it important? And do you see that making a difference in the way in which Prolific has evolved? Yes.
Uh, well, first of all, thank you. That's very kind coming from someone who's worked with so many CEOs. Where did that come from? I think the being a scientist helps with the fierce resolve part.
Hmm.
Just because science is so brutal. Anyone who has spent an extended period of time in the lab knows that if you don't have a fierce resolve, you are not gonna be able to continue because you're just like it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts being a scientist. It's just shit's always going wrong.
Hmm.
Experiments are not working the vast majority of the time. Even when you do everything right, like something will break or like a reagent will go missing, or it's being a scientist is really hard. And so I have the utmost respect for scientists. And I think it really teaches you fierce resolve because if you've
Hmm.
spent a decade in the lab, which I have, it's kind of it's part of the course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as for the kindness and the empathy, I I don't know if that's something that you get. I think that's something that's more innate.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm I'm Turkish. The Turkish culture is very warm. People are very kind. If anyone's ever been to Turkey,
Oh
you'll know
yeah.
what it's
Yes.
like.
Yes.
The
Yes.
people, warmth and kindness is very important for Turkish people. So I was definitely raised in that environment, and I feel grateful for being part of that
Yeah.
cultural heritage. Um,
Yeah. So do you see, I mean, how do you model that, right? I mean, that fierce resolve and when it isn't like being modeled, when it isn't being played out in the room or by others, the empathy, the kindness, or even the fierce resolve, the lack of performance. How do you manage that, right? That balance there in terms of performance.
Yeah.
Do you call it out? Yeah, how do you
Yeah,
do it?
something that you've really helped us with, John, is the candid feedback, even when you don't want to give it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
the right hand, as you call it.
The left hand, the
Oh, the
left
left hand. Sorry, yeah.
the right hand is what's not being said, right? The left hand is what's being thought, but not being spoken, right? Yes. So sometimes
Exactly.
the unspoken, the thoughts in your mind, right? That you need to say. Yeah.
And I came from the UK where the sort of default is if you're feeling something, you bottle that shit up.
No, I
And
know that.
I've really been trying to rework this and been getting better at speaking my mind, even when that's uncomfortable and even when that's very difficult sometimes.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting how I think, good leaders often will call out when values are not being demonstrated on the team. And I'm coaching people to do that more. But like, let just stop. That's we got to replay that one. That one is just that's not the way we have those conversations in the room. And so let's remind ourselves that we have a value around this. So can we actually replay that conversation? It's like and calling it out, because when you call it out, it's like with children, anybody, and stop and call attention to it, it actually sends a message. So,
Totally.
um, Dennis, as we think about this idea of just the leadership and the challenges as we go through, it's like I'm dealing so much in my own coaching with uncertainty, the unknown. People talk so much about so many things in many ways that they can't control, the world, just everything going on, the markets, et cetera, et cetera. How do you deal with uncertainty and the unknown, particularly as you navigate this world right now and your organization? So how do you deal with it personally? And then how do you deal it within the organization? People are wondering, where are we going? How's it working? Are we going to be in business? It's like, are we going to get cash? It's like all those issues, right? How do you deal with that uncertainty?
Yeah. Um, there's many different dimensions to the uncertainty.
Yes.
The 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 scientific uncertainty, which is
Yeah.
very hard to deal with because we are, on the frontier of synthetic biology and nobody's ever done what we're trying to do before. And so, um, most of the time we don't know whether we're going to be able to do something until we've given it a crack. And so there's not much that you can do about that uncertainty other than understanding how science works and, designing your experiments as well as you can, giving yourself as much time, finding the best scientists. We're pretty good at that. And over the last 5 years, we have taken a lot of scientific uncertainty and turned it into a lot of scientific certainty
Mhm.
around being able to control cells with light. So that's good. Um, there's still uncertainty, of course, about, will it be adopted by all these people? And we're, starting to get that uncertainty turned into certainty too. But then there's obviously macro uncertainty of like, will there be wars? Will there be natural disasters?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
that stuff is just not in our control. So try not to worry about it. I'm just I tell the team all the time. It's like there's a lot of things that we can't control,
Mhm.
and that's okay. We just need to focus on the things that we can control, which is the diligence with which we approach our work, the determination with which we approach our work. Those are things that we can control. So let's control those,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then whatever else happens will happen.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. It's so fun. I'm not sure we've done this exercise, Dennis, or not. Maybe we have, but you just defined it. It's like, I'll have people list all the things causing them anxiety, right? Around whether it's the science, the mission, the money, the whatever, the world, family things, everything. List them all, and then indicate for each one which things are out of our control or uncontrollable that you really can't do a lot about, right? And there may be some hybrid there in there. And which things can you control? I always say that you can control your focus. You can control your emotions around how you show up. You can control the fact that here's the reality, and we got to do something about that problem, and we can fix that. Um, working
Mhm.
on those things that are right there that will get you to that place. I don't know. It's interesting how you just
Mhm.
define what I call the uncontrollable and controllable exercise, which is really interesting. So I sounds like that's helped you and the
Been
organization.
very helpful for me and my team.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so, Dennis, as you think about the things that you are focusing on, that I always this question about what keeps you up at night through these times of uncertainty and the controllable, uncontrollable. What are your biggest challenges that you are working on right now that you can control, that you're doing something about? Where can you make the difference as a leader, or your team can make the difference? What are those
Mm.
challenges?
So for my team, the big challenge is we've spent the last 5 years basically proving that it's possible to control any function inside of any cell using orthogonally tunable wavelengths of light, and that we can make various products with this, including food products and now drugs. The big challenge for us is now to take this scientific paradigm shift and uh, turn it into lots of money. And we are doing that. We've started onboarding customers and commercial partners. So that's the big challenge for the team. For for me, the big challenge is making sure that the team has all the support that they need from me and that they have all the time that they need to make this work. So I am, currently in traveling, meeting with various investors to get us more capital so that I can get my team more time so that they have the time that they need to really have the company reach its full potential.
Mhm,
We're basically at the point where we're 100% sure that given enough time, this will work.
mhm,
So my job is to get enough time.
mhm, mhm. Do you continually, I mean, that with you have such a positive mindset about things, do you have to continually remind people that we're on the journey and that we're gonna make this happen? It's the positive mindset, right? But being real about the challenges along the way. It's that balance, right, Dennis? How
Yeah,
do you
I mean, I definitely I do think that being positive is a good thing. I do also consider myself a realist in the sense that
yeah, yeah, the scientific side.
I don't have the rose-tinted glasses. I think
Yeah, right,
at the
right.
beginning of Prolific, my my probability of the company working was, probably 0.0001% or something like that, because it was just absolutely bonkers. And now I think the probability of the company working is maybe like 60%, something like that.
Yeah,
And if we have enough time, I think the probability of the company working is 100%. It's just
yeah,
about
yeah,
whether we'll have enough time.
yeah.
So I think being optimistic is important.
Mhm.
If you as the founder and leader don't believe that the company is going to work, nobody is going to believe that the company is
Yeah,
going to work.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it can very much be a self-fulfilling prophecy if you don't think, and also like there's such a big opportunity cost to our time. It's like if you don't think that this is going to work, stop doing it. Just
yeah,
try and
yeah,
find
yeah,
something that
yeah,
is going to work.
yeah,
And same with all of my employees. So I would shut down Prolific and return all the money to investors if I didn't think this is going to work. Like I
yeah,
believe that it's going to
yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah,
I'm more convinced than ever that light is the best way to control biology. And so as long as I keep feeling that, um, I'll keep going and I'll keep
Mhm,
encouraging my team to keep going.
mhm,
And my conviction about it has increased over time,
mhm,
not decreased,
mhm,
which
mhm.
is good.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It kind of it makes me think also, Dennis, as you're talking about just how much you share the transparency around your worries, concerns, the reality of things. You talk about the 60%. I mean, the other 40% that you're worried. The transparency concept and how it plays at Prolific. Talk about that.
I'm very transparent, and I didn't fully realize how transparent I was until I started talking to my friends who are working at other companies who are so-called transparent. And then I hear about their transparency and I'm like, oh, I'm extremely transparent. Uh, uh, I do think it's important to build trust. Yeah, I, yeah. The metaphor that someone used that I like is like you want it to be like a transparent umbrella, where it's like you want to be transparent, you want to be able to see through it, but you also don't want the rain to hit your
Ready to
employees.
hit employees
So
so
it's
that
like I,
they,
I'm the umbrella. Yeah,
but those are really in many ways as a leader, those are important calls to make around the way in which you message things at all hands meetings, right? I mean, my sense is that you think carefully about that, right?
very much so, very much so, and I think employees um they don't want a CEO to just tell them that everything is fine.
Mhm.
I think they really want to be engaged with as intelligent humans who
Yeah,
can assess risk.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, they're also scientists too, and
yeah, and
there's a skepticism to the biotech world that I see. The reality of being told that this is when they want data, they want the data. Tell us what's really going on, right? I mean, you have that to work with, right?
yeah, I mean, if you hire brilliant people, they
Yeah.
hold you to account. They're not just
Oh, yeah. The
that's a
accounting.
double. That's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. It keeps you honest as a CEO. I've seen you grow around that whole space of transparency and sort of managing all that with your style as well. So, uh, just to take a little different course in our conversation, because it's just you are writing a book, have written
Yeah,
a, you have written a book. We
written
talked
a
a
book.
little bit
Yeah.
about it, and I read a little bit about it, and I don't know. I mean, tell me a little bit about this book. I think
Mm.
it's fiction, right?
It's fiction.
But it's
It's been
based upon,
it,
yeah, yeah.
it's been really fun. I think at least for me, I find it really hard to stop thinking about work. Like Prolific has just
Yeah,
been
yeah.
it's just been this all-encompassing thing for the last 6 years. And I think it's really important, at least for potentially for all CEOs, but at least very important for me to be able to find something that makes you stop thinking about work.
Mm,
Because there is a certain amount of thinking about work that is absolutely good, but it's not always more good to do more thinking about work. That you go past the point where you're just worrying and it is no longer helpful for your business. And so writing is one of the few things that has me stop thinking about work. And
yes.
so I wrote this novel, and I found it extremely therapeutic. It's exploring two different themes. One is the exploitation of animals for research and food, which is obviously tied into Prolific too. And the an exploration of prehistory through the mythology of indigenous cultures,
Mhm, mhm.
and the oral traditions that they have to try and figure out what happened prior to us having writing. And those two things are interacting in this world. Several protagonists, their lives are intertwining. It's been extremely rewarding and fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, it's getting edited. It'll get released at some point in the next year or so. Um, so yeah, it's been
That's
fun.
fascinating. I don't think I've ever coached a founder CEO who has written a book like this. And your board, I mean, how does the board, does the board feel about writing this for you? I mean, I think you've talked to them about it, right? They do know that, right?
They
Yeah.
know, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the board is great. Very fortunate to have investors who are very smart, very reasonable, very supportive. It's a well-functioning board.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have healthy discussion. I feel very fortunate. It's a
Yeah.
great board.
Yeah. That's interesting to be able to talk about the board around just board management and relationships. It is a very important thing to founders, and there's those who struggle with that, struggle with boards, and just investors have very different sort of skin in the game around different levels of investment, et cetera, expertise around your space, right? How do you manage the board?
Yeah,
How do you prepare for a board meeting? Yeah.
I think the most important thing that I do is I spend a lot of time with investors prior to bringing them onto the board. Like bringing an investor onto the board for me is a huge decision, and I do not make it lightly. And I make sure that there is values and mission alignment prior to anyone joining my board. Um, After they join the board, I also spend a lot of time with them and try and engage on things that they like to do, and build build relationships, not just not have it transactional. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's I think it's important. Um, yeah.
You have a certain way that when you think about a board meeting, sort of it follows a certain format for you. I mean, or does it depend on the issues involved? I mean, what's your rhythm for how that flow of a meeting? Because I get so much feedback around the fact that how do I do that board meeting? And in many cases it can be very challenging, right? Those conversations, managing them.
Yeah, I think something that I've been trying to get better at, and I think
Yeah.
have been better at is uh not being afraid of disagreement.
Hmm.
It can be very tempting to just try to minimize friction and conflict, but it is frequently not how you get to the best decisions. So sometimes a bit of friction and a bit of conflict can be good,
Yeah.
as long as it, remains healthy and respectful, etc. But trying to create this totally frictionless meeting is not necessarily the most productive thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Build that in. I mean, the conflicts. I mean, if you do your one-on-ones and you find these are issues that they're coming up to bring those conversations out with the group, right? I do like
But
I do like founders who actually manage their board rather than the board managing them. And I get feedback
definitely.
from board members that they like that because in many ways they don't know as much about the science and so when you have that control, that directiveness around it's this but not that, I find that that's positive. I don't know your thoughts about that. Yes.
I do try to give my board things to do that would be helpful.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
uh,
Like what? Like how do you do that?
like uh helping with business development
Ah.
or helping with investor intros or
Mhm.
um I have one board member who is like physicist and basically got him to help us with our techno-economic analysis, and
Yeah,
he was even doing like thermodynamics calculations on
yeah.
the metabolism of our cells. So it's like I try to get them to do real work, because like giving your opinion on something is relatively easy, but like actually rolling up your sleeves and doing real work,
Yeah,
um
I like
that's what
that.
I want to see from board members.
Yeah.
uh,
That makes a lot of sense, Dennis. I like that practice. I like that practice a lot. So,
But
um,
that also it requires you to have a certain type of investor that actually wants to do that.
yes,
You know, a
exactly.
lot of investors don't want to do that. A lot of investors just want to, sit on the sideline and give their opinions and watch their asset appreciate, but not actually do any work.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not looking for that kind of investor.
Yeah, right, right. So, Dennis, how vulnerable can you be with your board and your investors? I mean, we coach so much about this vulnerability. It's this, do I say I don't know that? Do I say I'm worried about this? Do I say, because they're funding you, etc. How do you play that?
I'm extremely open with my board about how I'm feeling and what I'm worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Has
think
it
it's like
always been that way? I mean, always from the beginning, do you think?
I've definitely been getting better at radical candor.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
I
that's been
I'm frequently telling the board about the things that I'm worried about and
yeah, yeah,
the things that could kill us, they know about.
yeah.
And
And
they
you
and never at a board meeting, and it's like always I strive for zero surprises at board meeting.
That's also a good rule. But some
Yeah.
of the things that you're worried about, I often find in talking to board members, they're worried about. I
Mhm.
actually think when you bring it up and it's on their minds, and sometimes it's the relationship where you just know this. Although I just think making it a topic of conversation, right, becomes really, really important. So this kind of, in some ways, Dennis, evolves us into the whole idea of prolific building this culture of growth and learning and
Mhm.
the role of coaching, but learning and development and getting feedback and reviews and just that part, which I think is, I think a real strong component of the success of prolific is growth, learning, coaching, development. Talk a little bit about that.
Mhm. I'm a big believer in executive coaching. I've had two coaches for the last few years. One of them I've had the great privilege of it being you, John, and I have another one too. And I actually I give coaching to all of my employees as a free perk of Prolific, so they have access to one of three coaches that they can choose, and the employees really like that. And I also think it's an excellent investment in the sense that um, uh, unresolved conflict is expensive in terms of productivity. And so if you can really up level people's emotional intelligence and get people working together better, I think that it adds to shareholder value more than it costs.
Mhm.
Um, and people like it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm a big believer in executive coaching.
Yeah. What about feedback around performance reviews and how that fits? And it's interesting how you just more recently hired a head of people, right? And with
Yep.
and how all that fits in and how you hope that role, that hire will build the structure, right, around cultures of learning and development. Yes.
Yeah, we have a, I mean, I think it's really important. Everybody at Prolific sees themselves. I definitely do, as a work in progress.
Hmm.
And and Prolific is a work in progress. And we have an amazing head of people. She has helped make a career plan for every single employee, and we do frequent 360s. Um, yeah, I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. No, I think those are all things that are just really important to think about. So, um, for you, Dennis, as you think about the next couple of years for you, I mean, what is your focus right now as a leader in this environment? I mean, you're in London right now, right? And it's
yeah.
fundraising. Is it pretty much keeping all of that? Where do you think your focus will change once this part of the fundraising, next stage? I mean, where do you see your time being spent?
So like, right now I'm not actively fundraising, but I am building
Yeah,
relationships with
yeah,
investors for the
yeah,
next fundraise that will go
yeah,
live at some point this year.
yeah.
And getting feedback from them and really understanding exactly what they want to see, building anticipation. So basically, I see my role as like three big buckets for the next few years.
Yeah.
One is making sure that we have the capital that we need to execute on our plans. Two is making sure that we have uh, customers who are really delighted by what we are building. And I take a very leading role in both finding those customers and making sure that they get delighted.
Mhm.
And the third is just making sure that the team is in the place where it needs to be in order to delight those customers.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, those are the big three buckets of work. And in terms of like what specifically that entails is we're doing a big push into therapeutic protein production with light right now.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's two parts to that. One is traditional monoclonal antibodies that we can make faster and cheaper than anyone else, and the other is difficult to produce therapeutic proteins, which other people can't make, but we can make because of the control that you have with light over the cells. Um, so I'm doing a lot of work trying to find people who that can help, and
With it.
then
Yeah.
helping them. So yeah, if anyone's listening to this and you have therapeutic protein assets, we'd
Dr.
love to
Dennis.
help. We'd love to help you. Please reach out. I'm on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
dennis@prolific-machines.com.
Yes, yes. That's awesome. It's interesting when you mentioned the team, spending time with the team and supporting the team. And I get so many comments from people I'm coaching around just burnout, right? And the burnout there. And how does Prolific look at that, right? And we've certainly, I mean, I've certainly coached there enough to know that people sometimes reach a point, but how you've got good people that you want to keep there, and yet they go through times that are really challenging. How does Prolific look at that dynamic?
Yeah, this is hard. I've had burnout twice in my life. One was during my PhD, where I was a real yes person. I just said yes to too many things and ended up with like four PhD projects. The second was during
That doesn't sound like a good a good place to be at all. You got through the PhD though, right? Yeah.
I did, yeah. And the second was during the Series B fundraise, which we ended up closing last year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but there. I was really trying to save the company money by not hiring people, and so we just went into that fundraise very understaffed.
Yes.
And then the amount of work that was required was extremely large.
Yeah.
The number of people that were available to do the work was intentionally small to be
No,
capital.
I coached in
And
that
so,
environment, so I know that the stress
uh,
with those folks,
uh,
right? Yes.
uh, I do think that that was a mistake in hindsight. It would have been, it would, if I could have, everybody has 2020 hindsight.
Yeah.
If I knew what I knew now and I could go back to the Series B, I would have hired some extra people and made it less painful for myself and for my other employees.
Yeah.
Um, but it's easy to look back with hindsight and suggest changes. At the time, I thought we were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Uh, I think there's a delicate balance between trying to make sure that you have enough hands on deck that nobody is burning out because the workload gets so large, but not so many hands on deck that there's a not enough a capital efficient structure.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
And
there's
that's
always
that's a hard balance to strike.
it is a hard balance, right? So when somebody, to get concrete about this, when somebody that is a really high performer, a jewel in your organization, you would want that person to stay. I mean, there are certain people that just need to stay in a biotech company. They're important, right? And yet they're burned out and they're wondering whether or not they should quit or not, right? And so how do you manage that? Do the leaders how do you manage those critical people that are just not in a good place?
Yeah, I try to manage that.
Yeah.
Yeah, take people out for walks, take people out for
Ah, ah,
meals. We've gotten employees weekends away before to try and
ah,
get them to
ah.
relax.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
um, yeah, I've offered one particular employee just a month off because he was
Just
working so
time
hard.
off for, yes,
Just
yes.
because he was working so hard, 7 days a week for
Mhm.
weeks and weeks on end. Um, so after offered him a month off, he didn't take it. But like even just like
The
the
gesture of doing it, right?
the
Yeah,
gesture of like a
yeah,
month off fully paid,
yes,
and he said
yes,
no, but like the gesture was appreciated nonetheless.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, I'm sensitive to it, having been through
yeah,
it myself.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
the problem is when you find people who are really good and they really care, they tend to burn themselves out.
Oh,
It's not
they
like
do.
not
They're
like
talk
like
about obsession and just that fierce
and
resolve. Yeah,
and those are the people also that you want. You want people
yes,
who care
yes,
so much that they are not going to let this not happen.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting, Dennis. One of the things that we've coached a lot at Prolific, but we coach in general, is this idea that as you're having one-on-ones with your direct reports, we're so concerned about getting to the performance and the metrics and how things are going, the problems to solve is to be able to ask the question, how is it going for you? Or how can I support you? Or what's working for you? What isn't? And then those things come up that are often personal. They can be family, whatever. And hearing that, you don't always have the answers to solve those problems for them, but hearing it and showing that support can go so far. I mean, I feel like that's something that I don't know. I feel like that happens at Prolific. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, every one-on-one that I have, I ask my direct reports how I can help them.
yeah, yeah. How can I support you? Right. And then
And I
that's
try and do it, not just ask the question.
to
Um,
hear it, to hear it.
hear it, but not just hear it, but then also do it.
To act it, or to help with that, or to have a way to solve that. Because so many of these issues around performance can be personal. They're personal around feeling supported, feeling valued, people feeling valued, telling them that they are valuable, etc. So um, interesting. I didn't know this about you, Dennis, but I do know that you are a member of Founders Pledge.
Mhm.
Tell the group a little bit about that. I mean, we did some coaching with, well, David Goldberg is head of Founders Pledge. And so, people might want to know a little bit about why for you and what it is.
It's a great organization. It's basically a commitment that they get founders to do, which is that if you end up making over a certain amount of money with your company, you will pledge to donate a certain amount of it to charity, and they have a really amazing research team where they will figure out who is the best charity, and how efficiently are those charities using the capital, and how much impact is each charity having, so that they can help you direct the philanthropy to the most impactful sources.
Mhm.
So I'm a part of that.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
pledged.
yeah. And it really says a lot about just the importance of giving back. And I think that just